What up, dude?
Hello. Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going pretty good, man. How you doing?
Good.
All right. So I don't know anything about what's going on with your gameplay. Why don't you really quickly tell me what race you are, what your kind of like your league is, and what your average like play style is, I guess.
All right, so right now I'm in Diamond 3
Okay.
and I'm a Zerg.
Perfect.
And usually I tend to build like Lings, Banelings, and sometimes Muta and Roach.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. I would say if you were anything below diamond, that mutas might not be like a great idea or lings, but if you are diamond, I think it's totally fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, we can definitely fix up your builds. That's probably going to be the biggest problem that you're going to have is like your build. You may not realize it, but your build might just be inefficient in certain ways. Um,
Okay.
and then we could just like look at like your micro and stuff like that. Try to help fix that up too if I see anything that looks like it could be better. But yeah, man. So basically, all you got to do is if you're not already on, just log into North America BattleNet, and then once you're on, join either one of these two chats. Just put them both in Discord between you and me. Just type /join space either one of those channels, and then I'll be able to see you.
All right.
So, out of curiosity, uh, do you find yourself in a lot of base trades?
Wait, what? What did you say?
I said out of curiosity.
Sorry.
Do you? No, it's no worries. You're doing two things at once right now. Do you find yourself getting into like a lot of base trades with your playstyles?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, that's what I
quite a
kind of.
bit.
Yeah,
I struggle against Protoss a lot.
sure. Okay. Yeah. Is that the way you want to go over today? Is mostly Protoss?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And like some Terran, I guess. I want to like learn a good roach all in.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be easy. We can do that really fast.
All right.
All right. So what I'm typing in both chats right now. You can let me know I guess if you see it. I don't see you yet though.
Okay, I sent it.
All right. Or actually, we can also do this. You can also just add this, to the friend ID. I just gave you my info instead. You'd have to let me know what your name is on StarCraft though, because I have a lot of pending invites right now.
All right, it's Sniper.
Okay. All right.
All right, I sent it.
All right, sick. I see you. Perfect, dude. All right, so I'm gonna invite you to a party. And I'll make you leader. Just go ahead and go to replays and do watch with others, and then go into the replay you want to go into. We can talk about it. And I guess we can do Protoss first, and then we'll finish off with Terran, and I can just give you like an example build of a build that would be like really good.
All right.
All right, and then go ahead and right-click my name and make me the lobby host, and we'll be perfect. Perfect. All right, man. So how long you been playing StarCraft 2 for?
Oof, a while.
Nice. All right.
Yeah, I've been mainly in Platinum for a while, and then I watched your videos, your recent Bronze to Grandmaster, and I got out of Platinum, and I'm in a Diamond now.
Nice. That's perfect, man.
Yeah.
Implementing the stuff. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. So like one of the biggest things about StarCraft, one of the biggest rules of this game for sure is always the early game sets up the late game massively. So the worse your early game is, the harder the late game will be, and the better your early game is, the easier it'll feel in late game. And so a lot of people don't realize where they're going wrong in early game. They're just like, they think their build is efficient. So that's what most of our focus will be on is going to definitely be like your opener and seeing how it kind of goes. I would already say
Yeah.
for just as it is right now, one thing I would change about your build a little bit would be If you're against a Terran, I think what you're doing would be fine. But if you're ever against a Zerg or a Protoss, I would highly recommend not building the 17th drone and instead just taking your hatchery at 16. Only because Protoss and Zerg both have their own way. They can really like punish you for going for a 16 hatch. Zerg, the thing about Zerg is they can definitely like 12 pull you, and it becomes harder because your hatchery just gets beaten on longer while it's under construction, which makes it way more vulnerable. And against Protoss, you have a much higher chance of being pylon blocked or a probe blocking your natural. Like, does that happen to you often, would you say?
Once in a while, yeah.
Yeah, the higher you get, I feel like the more it'll happen.
Okay.
It's just gonna be you'll save yourself a lot of frustration if you just go for a 16 hatch. Like, it was super close there being 17. So
Yeah.
All right, and then so are you kind of doing like a B2GM build opener?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay. So if your plan right now, because we'll see it in a second, but if your plan right now is to go for roaches, I would say your gas is too early. But if your plan is
I went lings.
Okay.
And banelings.
All right, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So if you go lings, it's fine.
Yeah, I should have gone roach this game, but
I would say also you can open up speedlings against Protoss all the time if you want to, but I would almost recommend never going banelings against Protoss early game, especially if you're in that stage where you are now, where you're kind of just like figuring stuff out, because banes are they cost the same amount of gas as roaches, and they're way less effective than roaches, unless your plan is to all in them. Like, it's really hard to make banes work effectively all the time. They're not as versatile as roaches are, basically.
okay.
All right. Now here's a big thing. Okay, this is huge. Your Overlord. I like that you scouted that he went for a gate expand. You can tell that he went gateway first because the Nexus is not done yet. So at least you know what his opener was. But what I think you should do, honestly, even if you lose this Overlord, I still think you should do this. You should fly the Overlord into his base and find out where the second pylon is. And you should try to find out what tech he's going to make right after the core. Because it's really easy to find out what Protoss does with your first Overlord. Because you can also tell if you're going to get like proxied or something like that. Like, if you don't see a second pylon at all, there's a very high chance you're getting proxied. And if it is a proxy, it's probably going to be like proxied Stargate if it's this fast. But if there's 2 pylons in his base, it's also a win for you if the Protoss chooses to delay his tech longer because he doesn't want you to see it. And he's like, I gotta kill it first. I gotta kill the Overlord before I throw my tech down. That means that you would effectively delay his tech for the build time of a Stalker plus the kill time of an Overlord for that Stalker to kill it, and then he would build it, which is like way more valuable than an Overlord's life.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say definitely scout his base with that Overlord, and you get so much permission out of it. Another thing you can look at is you can look at his Nexus, and you can see his Chrono Boost. The more energy he has, the more likely he's going to try to do some tech-related build. Like, he's going to do, like, again, like a Stargate, or he's going to rush, like, a Council with, like, maybe Glaives for Adepts or something like that. But the less energy he has on his Nexus, the more it means he's going to focus more on macro, which means you can definitely get away with more drones.
Okay.
All right, and then big thing here too is this is one of the reasons why I also say I think banelings are a bit of kind of like a risk factor, because you're still mining full saturation on gas after getting Zergling speed, and this legit is kind of putting you into a situation where it feels like your build is becoming all in, because you're gonna have way less than you should. Because right about now is about the time when you should be getting ready to start your third base if you're going to play a game that's not an all-in, if you're going to play more of like a macro-focused game. So your third being this delayed is going to hurt you in the long run pretty hard.
Okay.
So what I would say you should do with your gas is like you could take 2 drones off of gas as soon as you get Zergling speed. But then you can put 2 drones back on gas again once your natural is fully saturated on the mineral line. That would be like perfect timing to then you could actually utilize the gas there, but you would have a good economy to work with to then take a third base as well. Yeah, because you can see right now, the dude opened up with Adepts, which is pretty standard for Protoss. And he also threw down a gate and a core, or sorry, I mean a gate and a robo in his main. And you could see this, and he couldn't punish you for that with your Overlord. which I would say as a response to that, a roach worm would definitely be more valuable here for you. But you do get a link scout off, which is nice. This is good.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna give you like a little bit of a quiz. This is StarCraft quiz right now.
All right.
If you see what he's done, so everything you just saw, like up to this point in this game right now, what do you think the possibilities are? Like, what do you think is probably the biggest possibility of what's gonna happen after this so far?
Probably a 2-base all-in.
Okay. What kind of all-in do you think it'll be?
So what he did was with Archons and Zealots
Okay.
and Stalkers. It was like a mix. But like, or he could easily expand third base, but since he doesn't have 2 gases on his second, it feels like he's gonna have a lot of Zealots in his base, like in his army.
Yeah. Okay. That's I would say that's a fair call. I would say the fact that he doesn't have gas at his natural is a big tell that he's not going to make like sentries, because like if he's going to make sentries, that's definitely going to be gas requiring. The fact that he has a robo this fast, if you ever go robo first, there's one of 2 ways to read that. If there were like 4 gates in his base or 5 gates in his base, I would say that that robo is going to make a warp prism, because he's going to use it as a warp, like a proxy warp in. But if he has a low gateway count, like 1 or 2, kind of like what he does, he has 2. I would say that that robo is probably going to make immortals instead, because there's a trade-off there where the fact that he went robo first means he's not going to prioritize like some type of an upgrade off of like a council or something like that first. But it does seem like he is probably going to make immortals, and again, like what you said earlier, where you said that he could take a third, that is also still possible. This doesn't mean so far that he has to all in you, but I would just assume this is going to be immortals. It's more likely the case that it's going to be, and it could turn into aggression or it could turn into macro, but you'll have to scout again and figure that out and just maybe like look at the front of his base or something. But yeah, that's what I would say you should expect from him so far. So a great way to respond to that for you would be if you had a third base started, that would be wonderful, because you would be keep maintaining like that 1 base plus over Protoss, which is kind of what Zerg always wants to do. And then you could also go into a Roach Warren, which is super great. Like, it's just really good in general against, like, if it's an all-in, you could go Roach Ravager. If it's not an all-in and it's a third base, you could just go into Roach Speed, and you could pressure with Roaches at some point while having a good economy.
Yeah.
Now, if you open Lings, it's never, again, I don't think it's a bad thing. It's good against early Adepts, so you could easily punish them because you could always surround them. But if you do open Lings, like right about now, we're talking about like 4 minutes in the game, you should always send your Lings out, and you should really keep tabs on his third base.
Yeah.
I like that your Overlord's doing it as well, but the only benefit of going for Speedlings is if you deny his third, like within the next 30 seconds, if he tries to take it, because if a Protoss is going to take a third, they should always take it around 4:30 to 5 minutes if it's a standard build, which his build so far looks somewhat standard with a Robo Opener. So you killed the, or you, okay, right here, check this out. If you ever see an Adept like this, if they, if they shade, if like basically the way you can look at this to make it like 100% of a chance to happen, if you initially get a surround on an Adept and he just cast a shade, as long as you have a decent amount of surface area, we're talking about like 60% of the Adept is surrounded at least, which both of these would be, because he is against, like, both of his Adepts are touching each other, and he is kind of pushed up against your Evo chamber a little bit, but you'll still get like about 4 Lings on each Adept. You could kill each one of these Adepts before they shade entirely, so you could have killed these if you just attack move them. The only time I would say you need to chase a shade is when we're talking like it's not like 1, 2, 3, 4 Adepts, but instead it's like 10 Adepts or something like that. Then it's okay to then chase some of the Adept, like chase the shade a bit, because you're not actually going to kill all of them. It's very unlikely that's going to happen. The only way that would happen is if you had like, at that point it would be like Banelings. But yeah, I would say this is a little bit of a missed kill here for you by chasing the shade.
Okay.
Oh my god, that Adept is so close to dying. It's like 2 hits. Yeah. But I do like that. Okay, so again, what I just said to you though, it is minor. The killing the adept thing. The biggest thing is you saved your drones. You didn't let any drones die. That's the bigger deal. Um, but now knowing he doesn't have a third is a pretty big deal. So now at around 5 minutes, you should always keep this in your mind too. Right around 5 minutes, if a Protoss does not take a third base, you should really start paying attention. And if you can, try to scout his base, because now you should be expecting, okay, every second that goes by that you don't expand to a third base, you're probably gonna all in me. Your chances of all inning me go up and up and up and up. And then once you get to like 520, 530, it's pretty much an all-in, unless his build is really bad. And you can see right now too, like right about now, he's making that council. He's making more gateways. He's going up to a total of 5 gates, while chrono boosting out immortals. So now this is looking way more like, okay, yeah, he's gonna all in me. Like he's gonna prepare to do some type of a timing. And again, a great way to deal with this, honestly, would be if you just had 3 base economy and you just went mass roaches. Because the way you can micro it, I'm gonna ask you another question, okay? It's a little bit of a quiz. If you have if you do have roaches, all right? Let's say you have roaches and roach speed, and you're fighting up against a couple of archons, mass zealots, and a few immortals. Like maybe like 2 archon, 4 immortal, 25 zealot. How would you micro that if you just had like 40 roaches?
I mean, I'd probably go all in with like all of them. I mean, I don't want like a whole bunch of them not shooting, so like kind of like concave, kind of.
Sure. So you could do that, and that would not be the worst way to do it, because at least if you do that, you're still allowing the zealots to go to you first. But the way you could abuse that the most would be, you could just let him attack forward, and what will happen is his zealots will leash onto your roaches first. They'll like, because they'll activate charge, and they'll just like speed in super fast. Which the move speed of a zealot while it's charging is way faster than an archon or an immortal. And the fact that zealots are melee, they're gonna run maximum distance away from his archon and immortal. So if you just attack and you back up, so you basically kite. You attack, back up, attack, back up, attack, back up. You can actually allow your roaches to attack, because zealots will get up in your face, and then you back up and create more distance between you and the archon immortal, and then you attack again, and you continue to back up over and over and over. And once you bleed out the zealots enough to where like there's not many of them left, you can mitigate a lot of the damage that archon and immortal do to you, because they're just not able to get in range to shoot you yet. And then once the zealots are really thin, you can then reverse it and just push forward onto his archon and immortal without having zealots just blocking your face, and it'll make much more of a of a strong engagement for you, basically.
Okay.
But I mean, we'll see what you do throughout this game, but that would be a very solid way to go about it. The fact that you're going for Mutiling Bane, this is a little scarier. I would say the perfect way to do this now, so we'll just disregard roaches. I think it's the best way to go about it. But if you're gonna go Mutiling Bane, the best way to do that would honestly be probably base trade. Honestly, I would be scared for you a little bit if he has a well-rounded army, because the thing about Ling Bane is it gets shut down really hard by Sentry, and if he has like a good amount of DPS behind Sentry, like if he does have a decent amount of immortals, if he does have a few archons where he like maybe only allows your lings to engage from a little area, that would be okay. Now your Banes actually died here too, which is even scarier. So we'll talk about this right here. So your Banes are going forward. They're chilling for a sec. And right now too, so also knowing that he still doesn't have a third base. Honestly, okay, this would be how I would say you should respond to this if you're gonna go Mutiling Bane. Just because you're probably gonna get forced to do a base trade. The drones at your third base, they're honestly too late. And if you see him on the map like this right here, where you're about to run into him, okay, like right now, if you see this right here, I would say what you should do as a response to this is you should expect to base trade now, because you should not feel, you shouldn't feel super confident about engaging an army. If he does have sentries, Ling Bane just doesn't really scale very well. It scales very poorly. And you're also going into Aspire, which is something that is a little scary to do if you don't have a lot of mutas. And right now, at most, you can make 8 mutas, and that's assuming you make no more Banelings. So what I would say you should do as a response to this is you should expect to lose your third base. And if you took all these drones and you just kind of made spine crawlers in front of your natural, kind of like between your Evo chamber and your hatchery, literally just make like 10 fucking, like 10 spines. 10 spines or so. That would probably, like, if you know you're going to go into a base trade and you just have a bunch of spines there to fall back on, it guarantees you break his base, and it gives you a very high chance that you're going to whittle down his anti-air so that your mutas can win the fight. Like, if you go Mutiling Bane as an opener against a 2-base all-inner, it's really scary to rely on the mutas to win the fight against Protoss, because Protoss units scale really well early game. Like, Guardian Shield Stalker is very scary versus muta.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's, if you're gonna play this style, that's honestly how I would say it kind of needs to go for you. Because like right there, check this out. Right now, resource or units lost. We're just gonna look at units lost. So this is before your Ling's really taken a gauge here. He's lost 2, you've lost 24. Fight happens. You kill a sentry, which is nice. You kill 2 zealots, or you kill 1 zealot, which is it's nice. It's not bad. But you just lost 20 Lings for that, which is definitely gonna hurt you in the long run, because that was like 20 Lings is almost like half of your push here. So, and then, you know, a lot of his units are still there, so now they're just gonna regenerate shields. It's painful for you. But instead, if you saw him pushing out like that, if you would have gone for, let's say, his core and his gate and the pylon, there's a high chance you could have either made him turn around, which buys you more time, which is nice, or he just goes for an all-in now, and you just break into his base and kill all of his probes. And then it's a legit all-in for him. So that's like a win condition for you. This is the thing about Ling styles, is they require a lot more active movements with them. You have to be a lot more meticulous about how you take fights, which is why I would say Ling styles are harder. So this is why if you are gonna go Mutiling Bane against Protoss and your opponent's going to all in you, there's a very like chances are like 90% plus that you're gonna have to all in that, like counter all in him base trade. Otherwise you're gonna die. All right, so far, I know I've been talking a lot, but so far, do you have any questions about anything, or is anything not making sense about what I'm saying?
It's making sense,
okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. Good shit.
I feel...
Oh, go ahead.
I feel like I should have gone Roach sooner, though.
I think you should have, too. And I think after this game, we can definitely talk about a build that would be, like, really optimal for you.
Okay.
Just, it could be a build that's, like, it opens with Speedlings, and it becomes Roaches. And you don't have to... it doesn't matter if he all-ins or not. But if he does, so like for what I'm talking about is like your build has the option to go, I'll defend an all in, or I'll play a macro game. Like you don't have to do one or the other. It gives you options. So we can look into that after this game, but we can finish talking about like where your build kind of should go here. And I think right here, the fact that you attacked his wall and backed up, that's perfect. That's what you should do when you have Lings like this, because you should not think that taking a fight against his army is going to go well for you, because it really won't. And again, the reason why is because he has a nice assorted round of units, especially with with force fields. Force fields are going to screw you so bad here, because it's going to limit your surface area on what you can actually utilize. So you might have 50 Lings, but only 6 of them can actually hit things.
Yeah.
And knowing that he doesn't have a third, that should feel good for you too, because you know he is all in. So, again, like the thing I was saying is probably the best way to take the fight here would be to just make spines. It sounds weird. You probably are like, I never do that. Like I don't ever just make mass spines, and that's been something I've never done before. But if it's gonna be a base trade, which it should be, that would be a great way to just screw the Protoss that way.
Yeah.
I mean, this is nice though, how you keep finding sections of the Protoss' army. I would say that's not always going to happen. That is fortunate that it did happen for you. But even though that happened, that was like best case scenario for you. You're still dying, which is just, it just goes to show you how weak Mutiling Bane is early game in an all-in scenario versus Protoss. Like it has to base trade. And I mean, if your Banes take a really good fight here, it's possible because he doesn't really have a lot of sentries now. He only has one. So I could see your Banes blowing up a lot of his army here, possibly. Yeah, no, the Archon and the Immortal were in the front, so they were just like, yep. Yeah. Nice Banes, dude. Yeah, the Arch, like, if you had to guess, how many Banes do you think it takes to kill one Archon?
I'd say 6.
Okay, you're way off. It's the amount of Banes it takes for an Archon to die is about, it's like 18 Banes to kill one Archon.
Dang.
And it's about like, I think it's like 21 to kill an Immortal. Just because those units, they're not light. They both have like a ton of hit points, and like Archon has 360 health, and a Baneling does 20 damage. So it takes 18 Banes to kill an Archon, and then an Immortal has 400 health effectively because it has a shield that procs, and then it has 1 armor. So it takes roughly about 21, maybe even 22 Banes to kill an Immortal.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Yeah, so like just like it might take a little bit. It will take a little bit less because you have +2 damage on your Banes from the +1 melee upgrade you have, because it gives +2 damage per Baneling hit. But even then, it still is going to take like 16 Banes to kill an Archon then, and like 20 or 19 to 20 to kill an Immortal. So it's insane how much gas it costs for you to kill. And that's just one Archon and one Immortal. So if he spreads them out, it's going to be like, wow, my Banes are dead. Like it's gonna, you would need like 50 Banes or like 60 Banes to probably like win the fight here, which is ridiculous how much money that is. If you had like 50 or 60 Roaches, you would dominate his army, no problem. So Roaches are, again, I know you want to go Roaches. We'll talk about Roaches in a minute. Roaches are definitely the safer, more effective option most of the time. And they're, like, you actually, like, I would say that Protoss definitely overcommitted there. He should have just backed up to more Archons and stuff, and he would have been fine. So he kind of made a mistake there by allowing his units to just get run over. But yeah, it's still rough for you because you're still in this weird position where, you know, he's still effectively 2 base all-inning you, and you're trying to not die with kind of just an inefficient army. And yeah, just imagine if right now all these mutas that you just made, you have 10 mutas that just got made, which is nice. And just imagine if you had like 10 spine crawlers in front of your natural, and then you ran across with your Lingbane and the muta, and you just busted the pylon wall down and just killed his base. Then all it would take is your spines to all your spines would have to do is just kill the Archons, not even kill the Zealots, just kill the Archons, and your mutas could fly back once he has no probes, and you could just kill the Zealots in your base with mutas indefinitely. Like no matter how many Zealots he makes, because look at his gas, he has no gas, and he has a lot. He does have a lot of minerals, so he could possibly still make Zealots for a while out of his prism, if you know, if you don't underpower like the pylons and stuff like that. But even then, if your mutas kill the prism, well, then the game's just over. That I honestly just feel like that's the only way you win this game from this position. Like Archons just trade so well.
Yeah.
As you see, it's just like, hey, Archons are all still here. If you had Roaches though, same army investment. If you had Roaches there, you would have won that fight. Roaches actually can handle Archons decently. They can handle Zealots really well. The only thing Roaches really are afraid of is Immortals, and he only had like 2 Immortals throughout the whole game.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's basically game over after that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Especially if you're still going to keep making Ling Muta. You would, to beat his army, I would say this, okay? I'll give you a supply number here. If he's 64 supply and he's got what he has in your base, all right? He's got a few Archons, he's got some Zealots. For you to go Ling Muta to beat this, I would say realistically, to feel comfortable about beating this, you would need like 100 supply to beat this. Because like these things are going to shred your Lings like crazy. And it's going to rely a lot on the mutas to win that. And then even if your mutas stack, Archons are just insane how well they can kill mutas too. So 100 supply would make me feel confident that you could A-move that and you'd probably win. But if you had roaches, you could probably A-move that and win with 80 supply. Like, just a lot less. And it's also, roaches are also cheaper than mutas, and they're the same supply, but they're just cheaper. And roaches are also cheaper than a bunch of banelings as well. So it's the cheaper, more effective option. That's just, for early game, low supply situations, it's just better. Because if you engage with like equal supply here, he's gonna probably lose like 4 supply or 2 supply, or maybe even 0 supply. Okay, well now the fact that you make Banes, he's probably gonna lose a few zealots, but his, like, I imagine all his zealots in the front here will die because your Banes are gonna finish, but then not a single Archon will die to the mutas. Oh, 1 Archon did die. Okay, but yeah, no, 2 Archons died. Your Link flank came over too, but the Archons they're just gods. Like 2 of these Archons have 34 and 35 kills, and 1 of them has 7. Like they're just AOing the crap out of all of your units. So it's brutal.
Yeah, it's very frustrating.
Yeah. And you had weapon upgrades too. This promotes base trade even more. You also had level 2 weapon mutas there, which is really, really good. But again, you always have to keep in mind, if you do go Mutiling Bane versus a 2 base alliner, base trade is your only option. You have to do that. Also, another thing, before we leave this game, I would say never make 2 spires, ever.
Okay.
The only time it is okay to make 2 spires is if you have like 80 drones or like 90 drones on like 5 or 6 bases. You just have an insane economy, okay? And then you didn't start a spire at all throughout the game, but you want to get really fast upgrades plus brood lords or something. That's like the only time it's okay to go double spire. Otherwise, it just puts you in a really negative spot because it's way too expensive.
Yeah, and then it was over from that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'll speed it up just to see what else happens. But I mean, you killed some of his probes at his natural, which definitely gives you a chance again, a little bit. But I mean, there's nothing you can really do about the Archons at this point. The fact that you're going roaches is better though. Like you'll see that this fight, even though you're gonna have less supply than you did before, this fight should go better for you if you don't quit. Well, yeah, I mean a lot. Like, you had a lot less supply, so I mean it's not gonna go great. But yeah, roaches are definitely gonna be better for you in general. All right, so what we can do now is we can go into like build creation. I can make you a ZvP build, and I can also make you a ZvT build for the roach all-in for ZvT, and I can give you like a better, solid, just macro opener for ZvP. So I'm gonna leave the party. I'll re-invite you again, and I'll just create a game really fast. All right. And then, feel free as well. If you have any questions about anything, does not matter. Just feel free to ask. I don't mind if you even if I'm mid-sentence, you can interrupt me and ask a question. It's totally cool. But yeah, I will make this game, and this one we'll do first. It'll be a ZvP. This could be just like your standard opener that you do every game. And then once you get to 3 base saturation, you can do whatever you want from there. It doesn't matter. But up to 3 base saturation, this will be your build. So we're talking like basically up to like 5 minutes in the game. You just do this every single time. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's do this. So I'm gonna be going for a 16 hatch and like an 18 gas, 17 pool, which is really, really standard. We'll get speed. We'll rip off 2 drones off of gas once we get speed. We'll put them back on gas once we have a fully saturated natural, because that'll allow us to get a good amount of queens to creep spread with, to inject with, and also a 3rd base that's really well timed. So we just have a lot of larvae to use as well. And then once our economy goes even further, we'll take a few more gases once we really are ready to start roaches. And then, yeah, the build will just kind of flow from there. And I guess you don't have to do this every game too. But for an example, I will max out really fast this game on just roaches. So you could do this if you want to. But if you want to as well, you could always throw down like a spire too, if that's your flavor, if that's how you like to play more. Once you get to this good economy. But yeah, we'll definitely, the biggest focus here is generating a good economy and then going from there. Alright, so we got 16 hatch, 18 gas, 17 pool. Second Overlord, always, I would, if you, I didn't really pay attention to your second Overlord last game when we watched it, but I would always recommend kind of leaving it near your natural like this. So if you see a probe go into your natural, you can just follow it to make sure you can see cannon rushes. First Overlord, though, definitely always scout into his base.
So you said you were going to get a lot of queens. Like, how many queens do you think?
Like 4. About 4.
4.
Because you want, like, 1 per hatchery. We'll go up to 3 bases. And then you can have a 4th queen just injecting... Or, sorry, just spreading creep.
Okay.
So now we're going to rip 2 drones off gas. Because we're about to hit speed. Get speed. And then we could scout in his base, be like, oh wow, he doesn't have a natural. If you don't see a natural, you could definitely dive deeper and just see how many gateways are there or something like that. That'd be totally fine. I mean, you should feel like your first Overlord doesn't matter if it dies, because the amount of information it will give you is so much more valuable than the Overlord itself. And we'll just assume this guy's playing standard like your last opponent did. Like, you know, obviously it's an AI and it's like doing some horrible build. But yeah, we'll just pretend like it's a standard one. Alright, and we'll go ahead and make a 3rd queen out of our natural. We're still making drones. You can start like right around the time when your queens pop out. You can start like a couple of lings as well, for like, you know, like this is around the time when our speed's gonna be getting done soon, so we can go up to like maybe 10 lings. This will keep us safe from like double adepts if they like, just kind of like what you dealt with last game. So now these lings are just, you know, they're not really gonna be for attacking yet. They're just gonna be purely for defense. And we're still droning. We're still making overlords. We're still just doing our thing. This next queen that's popping out, we'll throw down a tumor, and then we'll send it to our 3rd base, and we'll start another queen again. So now that we do a tumor first, we can just have this queen now become an injector. And then this last queen that's spawning out of the natural can become, once again, a creep spreader, and it'll just stay a creep spreader for a while. At this point now, you can see we're about to be 100 gas. We can start a layer from that 1 drone that was mining. This is at the same time we got fully saturated natural. We can now start a roach warren. And then we can also, so we've resaturated our gas, started a roach warren, started a layer. And we can make another round of drones for our 3rd base. And we're going to drone up to like maybe like 10 drones, 8, 10, 12 drones, just like a little bit more than half basically of the saturation of the mineral line. And that's when, after we do that, then the next thing we'll do is add a couple more gases to actually build roaches with. Because we don't need the gas yet, because we can't even build the roaches yet. So if we did it too early, it would just make the build less efficient. It would slow everything down. But now that we have 11 drones, it doesn't matter where you take them. We could take them on the 3rd even. That's fine. There we go. We just started a couple gases there. And now we can take the next drones we make. Just make like 6 more drones. 3, make 3, rallied on one of the gases. Make 3, rallied on the other gas. And now start making roaches. And now at this point, let's take our lings and run around and go see if he has a 3rd. This is when you start making roaches, and you will now go, if I still have lings, check for the 3rd base. If I don't have lings because they died, or they're, you know, dying or whatever, I'm making roaches anyways. Depending on how your opponent plays. It's whatever. But most of the time, they will still be alive. And this is when you'd be like, okay, let's deny the 3rd, deny the 3rd, deny the 3rd. And you shouldn't really expect the lings to live very long. They're not gonna be alive forever. But yeah, like they could totally get something done. You know, if he's trying to take a 3rd, and you'll lose them, but you'll delay his 3rd longer. At this point now too, once you have like we're talking about like 10 roaches, which is what we have right now, I would say really quickly go to your base and just finish off your economy really fast. Put 1 more drone back on the main mineral line because you built the gas with it. Put 3 drones on the gas. Put 3 drones on both gases at your natural, and then put 2 drones back on the mineral line because you built drones with it. And then put another 7 drones on your 3rd base really, really quick. Just do this as fast as you can. We're almost there. We should be aiming for 66 drones. And right now we're at 65. Make 1 more. And then we can also start at 4th base. And then now just go mass roaches. Literally just mass roach. And at this point, you could do whatever you want. You could go, I want to go hydras with roaches. I want to go mutas. I want to go roach ravager. I want to go just mass roaches. I want to make swarm host. Anything you feel like is a good idea or you want to do it. This is why this build is so effective, because you can do whatever you want. The best way to describe this build is you could call it a branch build, because it's basically like, this is like the foundation of like a tree, like the tree trunk. And then now you can branch out however you want. You can do anything that you feel like doing.
Okay.
And then your creep spread is also really effective here too. You can see that the fourth base is, you know, it's almost halfway done. This queen that's making creep can just become an injector once the fourth is done. But for now, it's just making your creep go crazy. And it's gonna give you a ton of control of the game too, because you're gonna see so many things coming from so many angles, and just have coverage in a really good way. We're getting attacked, so we just send the roaches forward. Roach speed's finishing like right now too, so you just jump on this, go for it, go ham, and you can just like be like, oh wow, we killed them. If that ever happens to you, in the middle of your roach phase, if you crush an army like that, you could literally just make roaches and go counter kill your opponent. And you can see, look at the game timer. We're at 720, and we're already at 170 supply. Like, this is super fast. You can max out right around 8 minutes with this style. Actually, before we attack, we'll just max and just see how quick you can do it. You know, if you go for it. So we maxed out at 743, which is, if you look at some of your games that you've played in the past, at 743, I guarantee your Protoss opponents most of the time will have a supply count of probably like 94 or like 102, and you're gonna be like, I'm maxed. What's up? You're dead. And then from here, you could be like, all you want to do now is, you know, obviously you can scout them. You can figure out, oh, it's a Stargate. I want to go Hydras or Spire, whatever you feel like doing. But just make sure, like, your mineral lines and stuff, like your main base, for instance, you're like, oh, I'm oversaturated because mineral patches are running out. Send it to your fourth base. Make sure you're injecting all the time. Make sure you always have larva ready to go. Like right now, we probably have, you know, like 17 larvae sitting there, 18, 19 larvae, whatever. You can definitely keep your injects going so that if you do start losing units when you fight, you can always remax as quick as you can. And it'll definitely, you'll feel very powerful against Protoss playing this way. And also, last thing is, when you're in the roach phase, if your opponent is very all-in, and it's something you find very intimidating, you're like, okay, that's actually scary. It's maybe a bunch of sentries and immortals, something like that. The only thing I would say to do differently than what we did there is you could start also adding in Ravagers. Take your gases, take all the rest of your gases, if you know it's a 2-base all-in, and it has sentries included, and just make Ravagers with roaches.
Okay.
And that's it. It's a super strong anti-all-in build, and it's just really good at giving you a macro edge in the beginning of the game to then go to whatever you want to do. All right, and I would recommend saving that replay. Just like save it and then pay attention to the timer, and just use that timer to compare it to your own games, so you can kind of see where you're at. Like a good way to do it. This is a great way to do it if you're to make the game way easier to understand. If you just have like a spreadsheet or like a notepad or something, and you write down, okay, at 1 minute in ViBE's build, he had this amount of supply and he had this amount of drones. Like let's just say it's like 18 supply and 18 drones, and then 2 minutes, same exact thing. You write down exactly at 2 minutes, you write down supply and drone count. 3 minutes, same thing. 4 minutes, 5 minutes. You just do this all the way until I max out, which would be, you could write down it. The final checkpoint could be 7 minutes, and then 7:43 he maxed out. You could look at your build and you could compare where you're at, and that could tell you, okay, well, if I'm deviating from his build at everything's the same up until now, 3 to 4 minutes, there's something different there. What's happening? And you could be like, oh, okay, it makes sense. I'm taking my gas way too early, or my third's way too late, or it breaks down where you're going wrong really specifically, instead of trying to look at the whole replay being like, okay, what happened? Let's figure this out. It just magnifies your problems so they're easier to see. So I definitely would recommend that. And then yeah, now the last thing we could do is we'll jump into one more game, and we'll give you a ZvT roach all-in. And we'll do like a roach ling all-in. Are you ready? You ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so this is going to be 3-base again, but it's going to be really, really aggressive. It's going to open somewhat similar to what the last one just did in a way, but we're just never going to take off gas.
All right.
So just know too, like that gas thing is very important. If you do want to play macro, you pretty much always want to take off gas, like how we just did in the last game. But if you want to all in, you should leave on gas then. Because if you leave on gas and you macro, it's just so hard to gain any type of an edge or a lead for Zerg, because you're just so tied up with your economy being invested too much into gas. Because like I would say the biggest trick about Zerg for you know, macroing properly is getting your third down fast. And since this is a ZvT, I'm gonna go for a 17 hatch instead of a 16. I do recommend 16 hatch against Zerg and Protoss always, but against Terran, I'd say 17's totally fine. It gives you a tiny bit more of an edge, and Terran never really punishes a 17 hatch. And then we'll drone, so we'll go, this time we'll go, instead of going 16, 18, 17, we will go 17, 18, 17. It'll always be hatch gas pool. But yeah, so far you have any questions about anything?
No, not really.
Okay. Nice.
I don't know. I feel like I find myself not scouting enough sometimes in games.
Sure.
And I felt like that's like part of the reason why I lost that Protoss game. It took me too long to transition into roach because I didn't scout enough, you know.
If I told you that if your opponent, if you max out at 7 minutes and 43 seconds, if your opponent goes for Immortals, if he goes for Colossus, if he goes for Disruptors, if he goes for Mass Gateway, if he goes for Stargate, Void Rays, Phoenix, Oracles, if he goes for Charge Lots, Dark Templars, Archons, no matter what he goes for, you'd win every single time. Would you believe me if I said that?
Okay.
You're like, yeah, sure, why not?
I do, yeah.
Because honestly, I agree, your scouting could be better, but your bigger problem is definitely your macro. You could actually play the game blind, but if you play efficiently, you'll still win. So if you want to know good scouting times, your first scout time should always be your first Overlord. Like you kind of didn't scout at all, like we talked about. You need to definitely kind of get a read on his initial build. And then your second scout should always be around 4 minutes. Always around 4 minutes. And then you'd be great.
Newly birthed queen ready. Queen birth successful.
All right, and then so we did kind of spot block ourselves here. It's a little unfortunate. I got a little carried away with the talking, but it's okay. We haven't larva cap, so it's fine. Now we're gonna make drones up to about 10 drones on your natural, okay? So that's the ideal goal here. And you can start a third queen, and you can also start a third base when you get to around this time, like when you're, when you can afford it while making constant drones. And then you can start a roach run as well. And again, the goal is to go to about 10 drones. So we have one final drone in production. So we're going to be sitting on 16 and 3 in the main, 16 mineral line, 3 and 3 in the gas. And then we're also going to go to 10 on the natural. And then the trick is, though, once you get to 200 gas, rip all your drones off gas. Rip them all off. Every single one of them.
Okay.
So you're going to mine, ideally you're going to mine 300 gas in total. And once you're at this stage, you make like 5 overlords or 6 overlords, because you're about to have this massive supply surge where you're going to make roaches, and you're then going to follow it up with just floods and floods of speedlings. And you're going to be doing floods of speedlings off of 3 base economy. So now we just made a bunch of roaches. We made 8 of them, which is ideally what you want to go with. And now overlords and zerglings. And make an overlord if you have to, and then just zerglings. And these 4 lings initially will ideally kill the Reaper, and they will also ideally kill any type of a scout that tries to go into your base initially. But now that 3 hatcheries are done and 3 bases are being injected, the ling flood's going to be ridiculous. It's just going to be tons of lings coming out. And all your roaches really need to do is your roaches need to break the wall. They're going to definitely be like the depot breaker, the bunker breaker, whatever you have to break. Your roaches are heavily going to have to do that. But once you break it, the amount of ling flood you're going to have is just going to be insane. So just don't. The trick here is don't engage with bits and pieces of your army. Do not engage with like 2 roaches or 3 roaches. Wait until everything's here. Get it all bunched up like this. Keep macroing, keep injecting, keep making lings, and then once it's all like this, then you go like that. You bust all at once, and then you just break the natural, and then you let your roaches kind of go, and you know you break the depot probably at the ramp here, which will always be there, and then you just flood lings and you just literally a move into his base. Once you break in, all you focus on is inject, 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 make lings, a move, inject, 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 make lings, a move. You need to do that repeatedly, because if you ever miss an inject and you don't utilize your larva, your all-in is weaker than if you were to like focus 100% on your micro and just not make new units. Like the injecting and the ling remaking part is definitely the big part. As long as you do that, you will have constant streams of lings. Because if you look at the minimap, you can just see constant floods of lings always going across the map to his base. It never stops. And that's the power of this build. Most of your ZVTs will be 5 minutes long or 6 minutes long, just like this. You'll win a lot of your games like this. And that's like a super easy peasy roach all-in build. I would say I think that's probably the best one to learn initially, because it's the most macro focused and the least micro focused version of a roach all-in. A lot of other roach all-ins that have like ravagers included to them require way more efficiency with your micro, but I feel like that's something that I think you should do later on in the future, once you can really just crush people with this build, because you're really able to like handle the macro while all-inning somebody. And if you ever find yourself having, like, let's say you're like, oh wow, I have like 1,000 minerals, I'm missing injects a little bit here and there, just take one of your drones off your natural and just take like a 4th base, and say screw it, just take another base. It's fine. Okay. And yeah, man, and that will handle things pretty well for you. We're getting closer to the end here, but before we do you have any other kind of like ideas of a build you'd want to see, or do you have any questions again about anything that you're not sure about?
Not that I can think of.
All right. Is there a possible build maybe you'd want to see, like maybe a ZVZ version of an all-in or something?
Yeah, sure. I'd like to see a ZVZ. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's do one more. Does it do it? So the ZVZ one is a little different. It's very, very all-in. It's not going to be as macro-focused as the ZVT one, because the thing about ZVZ is you need to definitely worry about like them all-inning you really fast. That's always a possibility. So it's the Zerg vs Zerg one is definitely going to be a 2-base all-in rather than a 3-base.
Okay.
But the idea still kind of follows the same concept though, where we're going to mine 300 gas and stop. 100 gas of that is going to be ling speed, and then 200 gas of that's going to be for roaches. But it'll definitely ramp up a lot faster. Like we're going to cut drones. Go ahead.
I don't know how you memorize all these builds.
Oh, so if you had to guess, how many games of StarCraft 2 do you think you've played? Just a number.
How many I've played?
Yeah, just in total.
I checked and it's about 2,000.
Okay. So the amount of games that I've played, you'd probably be pretty surprised. I've played about 80,000 games of StarCraft 2.
Wow.
So this has been my job for like a decade now. And at first, for the first half of the decade, it was a pro gamer, and now for the last 5 years or so, it's been streamer. So when I was a pro gamer, I definitely memorized tons of builds about how I wanted to do things. And the biggest thing always was efficiency. I always looked at efficiency with every build. Yeah. So like some of the builds I made myself, and some of the builds I looked at what somebody else did, and I was like, wow, that's really good. I'm going to steal that. But this one, it's so it's a 16, 18, 17 this time. 16 hatch, 18 gas, 17 pool. We are not going to nearly drone our natural nearly as hard. We're going to go to about 8 drones this time instead of about 10. And you're going to notice it's going to happen a lot faster. and then we're gonna immediately start the roach horn then. And we're then gonna be going into a bunch of overlords pretty fast.
So why can I not do this against like a Terran or Protoss?
Because it's easier to scout. So the thing about scouting with Zerg is it's harder for Zerg to scout until they have speedlings, so it's easier to hide this build right away. For Terran, it's easy to just get a Reaper in your base and scout really fast to see if you're doing this really fast. And for Protoss, it's easy to scout with an Adept as well, if they want to. So, and if they scout it, it's easy for them to defend it, because they can just go into this, like, I'm going to be defensive now mode. But Zerg, you can deny their lings pretty effectively if they don't have speed, and you can push an Overlord away. So this hits at a point with Zerg where they just don't know what's happening, and they're like, oh god, roaches. Okay, well, this sucks. And it's also nice to make it early against Zerg because of the fact that you also might be getting all-in from them. And if Terran and Protoss were to all-in you, the only way it's intimidating is if it's a proxy. And if it was a proxy, you would already know with your first Overlord Scout. You should already know. Because you'd be like, oh, there's nothing there. So your chances of winning the game are just higher on average if you do a little bit more of a little bit more drones with a third base involved, because it allows you to flood repeatedly and break their base over and over and over. This version is kind of just like the initial bust is mostly it, and then your flood is a lot weaker, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we made a bunch of spare Overlords supply, so we had a big supply cushion to work with. We make roaches first. And now, as soon as we have 8 roaches, we're at 7 right now, so we need to get 25 more gas, which we're about to be there. And now we are. And we make our last roach. And we're done making roaches now, and now it's just lings. Just lings. So 8 roaches and just lings off 2 base. And against Zerg, remember how I said stack your roaches in the front of their base against Terran? Do it in front of your base against Zerg this time. Stack them all, because you don't want to have them scattered and getting surrounded by speedlings. And oh, 3 roaches are getting surrounded by speedlings. 4 roaches over there are getting surrounded by speedlings. Like, make sure they stay together. Because it's kind of the same thing that you did to the Protoss, where you kind of kept surrounding his zealots and stuff, and his immortal. You just don't want to get spread out. And now, at this point, all you do is you just make Overlords when you need to, and you make just more lings, and you just flood. And just be careful about running into, like, a Baneling. Because once you're, like, all you want to do is guard your roaches with the lings. I bet the roaches are really the pushing power here that you'll just, like, run into him with. And then after you kind of have this going, if your money gets kind of high, you can start a third. So you can eventually transition into 3 base if he doesn't die. But this build definitely will probably kill most of your opponents at this stage when you're doing your first bust. And although I did say that the flood is not as strong with this build as it is with the others, because it just hits faster, it is still important, though, to constantly make lings and flood as much as you can, though. That is still a very big deal. There you go, man. There it is.
Alright.
These builds will definitely make your games feel fast. If you want my honest recommendation, though, do these sometimes, but try not to rely on them all the time. I know a lot of people will get tempted to be like, oh, well, you know what? If I macro, I'm losing a lot more lately because it's just harder. I can just get myself some easy free wins doing these kinds of builds. If you rely on these builds too much, it just makes it feels good, but it makes it harder to become a guy who doesn't do this stuff. I would say always keep that in the back of your mind. It'll just be harder to play standard if you rely too much on all-ins.
Okay.
Although it is very
And
tempting.
then I was watching you earlier, I think earlier today, one of your previous streams, and I saw that you said that you're getting addicted to like a no gas opener.
Yeah, that's hard. Yeah.
Why do you do that? Like,
it's really greedy, and a lot of people don't know how to punish it. But it requires a lot of you, the player doing the gasless style. You have to always predict what's going to happen before it happens, because your defense is very weak if not placed correctly. Like, if my queens are in the wrong spot, I die. Every time.
Okay.
So you have to just really know what you're doing. But it's really greedy, so a lot of people will be like, I have to attack because he's being greedy. And if they fail their attack because I'm in the right spot, they're just like, I'm dead now. I have no way to stop this because it's way too much money. It's just a fun way to play.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, man. Well, I know I've asked you this a few times, but I'm gonna ask it one more time. Any questions about anything before we call it?
Not. I don't have any. No.
All right, man. Well, I would highly recommend saving those replays so you can always use them as reference. And dude, thank you. Shout out to your family for doing a coaching lesson. And oh, much love, man.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right, take it easy, dude. Good luck.
All right. Thanks. You too. Bye.
All right, see ya. All right, guys, that has been a coaching lesson with Drew. Shout out to the Drew fam. Guys, yo, Byron, thank you, man. Much love. Guys, I hope you enjoyed it. I do have more coaching lessons like this. I always say this. It's my little spiel. Go check out more coaching if you want more coaching. This was a plat level lesson. Or no, sorry, it was a diamond 3 level lesson. It's like close to plat, verge of plat diamond, basically. But yeah, go check out more if you're interested. And thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one. Peace, guys. Bye-bye.